Isaac in Venice, thanks for waiting.
Thank you. I've watched quite a bit on YouTube.
Hang on, I put you on hold. If you're watching the live stream and everything, you're going to need to turn that off or down because we're getting feedback. Okay?
Okay, let me turn the game on.
Okay. And can the call screeners just tell people to do that by default? I'm sure you did, but...
How's that now?
Much better.
Much better, thanks.
Okay, I've watched the show on YouTube. I'm a first-time caller, and I'm getting a lot of echoing in the phone, so that's throwing me off a bit. But let me just ask a quick question. How do you deal with claims of the paranormal, and have you ever experienced anything like that?
Okay, wow, that's different from what it said we were going to talk about. But so I just did a talk at the North Texas Secular Student Conference, a little bit about testability and about claims of the paranormal. The James Randi Educational Foundation has a $1 million prize offered to anybody who can demonstrate a paranormal/supernatural phenomenon. There's a difference between the phenomenon that manifests and the cause for the phenomenon. So it's one of those things of, let's say that I claim that I have this supernatural ability to predict a die roll. So the odds are 1 in 6 of any specific number coming up, and I can predict the die roll 90% of the time over really long strings of rolls. That's something that we would look at as extraordinary. And so the first thing you need to do is find out whether or not the phenomenon that I'm claiming exists actually exists. You have to do that in order to demonstrate that there's anything there to investigate to determine a cause. So far, nobody's been able to demonstrate any phenomenon for anything paranormal or supernatural to the point where we could then begin to investigate the cause. Now, the second problem with that is I'm not convinced that you could ever identify a supernatural cause for a phenomenon because I don't see that they're falsifiable. You may be able to demonstrate a positive link between things, but by and large, the assertion that there's some supernatural agent or agency or cause is something that I don't see as falsifiable, so I don't know how you'd actually demonstrate it. What you'd end up with, in most cases, is an unknown. There's some extraordinary phenomenon. We've demonstrated that it's actually occurring. We don't know what causes it.
Yeah, and I would I would add to that by saying that first off, I've never really had a clear definition of from people who believe in this sort of thing of what the word supernatural actually means. In the same way that I speak to people who use words like spiritual, and I ask them what that.
Offer a definition?
Well, hang on. Well, you can. Let me just go ahead and finish my point real quick, though.
Okay.
Building on what Matt said, what I would say is that if we ever encountered evidence of what people commonly refer to as a supernatural entity, let's say ghosts, right? Let's say that we come down with some really hard evidence of ghosts, like it's very, you can confirm it, we can get repeatable results. There's ghosts, they're really there. We've got one. It's solid. Well, that would not be scientific evidence of the supernatural. What that would mean is that there is something else new, there is something new about our natural world that we now know about. For example, ghosts would become something, they would become part of our natural world. They would become an undiscovered part of nature that we have now discovered. Well, in the same way that, really extreme ideas in physics and cosmology, and if you go deep into the universe where you have quarks and gluons and talking about multi-dimensions and what have you, and all this speculative science. And again, these would have seemed baffling magical concepts to people 200 years ago. But they're new things that we are discovering in nature.
It's a little different from that. I mean, there are the proposed phenomenon are things that. That's why I was saying we would just have an unknown, that we don't know what the cause is. They wouldn't just be, it would be wrong to just say, oh, they're just natural. So, for example, if somebody claims
the natural universe,
the phenomenon is, the phenomenon manifests, but the cause being supernatural. Go ahead.
Unless the phenomenon acted with what would seem to be intent or some sort of intelligence.
Which still doesn't confirm that it's supernatural.
Yeah, because natural things act with intent. So what you would have
What would you term that as?
Well, I don't know. I need an example of what you're talking about, because I've never,
Okay,
I've not only
let
never.
me I'll pull one out of thin air.
Well,
Okay,
that's.
How about something? How about something moving that should not be moving in a room? That has no reason to be moving, no physical reason to be moving.
How do you know that it has no physical reason to be moving?
That's the example I'm giving.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is you're making a claim that you can't demonstrate. See,
Okay, we'll say a book on a coffee table goes flying across the coffee table.
Sure. How did you eliminate all possible physical, natural causes for that book moving?
Because there are no other known possibilities.
No. That's a fallacy. Saying there's no other known possibilities is an appeal to ignorance, that we don't know of any explanation for it. Therefore, we're justified in going after supernatural. That is an.
I've never used the word supernatural.
Well, okay.
Well, but you just
hang on, because now I'm frustrated. I don't care what word you used. You just said there are no natural causes, which means you're appealing to supernatural causes, correct?
I said there's no reason.
No, you said no natural reason.
All right.
We know of.
Sure. No reason that we know of. So congratulations. Now we have some. Now we don't know.
So I'm asking you, my first question was, how would you process an event like that?
Well, it depends on what the event is. In that specific case, we'd want to actually duplicate it and investigate it and look for natural causes. If we don't find any, that doesn't mean there aren't any.
Okay, let me conclude this call with this. Then, have you ever seen any of the shows where they seem to have caught events like that on tape?
Yes, they're disgustingly stupid shows.
Do you think that they make those up?
Yeah, I think some of them have been invented as.
You know.
Okay, stop. I didn't say I know. You asked me what my opinion was, and I gave you my opinion, and I did not claim to know. I am convinced that some of them are faked because we know that faking like that happens. We've caught people faking these things before. I cannot make that claim for all of them or any specific one, but they have not demonstrated an actual phenomenon sufficiently to justify believing it, and they still haven't and possibly could never demonstrate that it's caused by something supernatural.
See, here are the options that you would be here are the options that you would be faced with, Isaac, if for example, let's say I'm watching this video and I see some phenomenon occur, okay? There are numerous options. Number one, a genuinely paranormal supernatural phenomenon is being recorded and I'm watching it on tape right now. That's one option. Another option is that the producers of the show have faked this just for the entertainment value of the show. My opinion. What? Hang on. Hold it.
Hang on.
I'm explaining why that's an opinion that I would have. Okay. The reason that I think that that's possible is because.
You can listen offline. Go ahead.
The reason that I think it's possible that some of these could be faked is because I work professionally in film and television. I have worked on reality shows. I have seen spontaneous events. I have been on set when these have been staged by the producer. You know, the producer will come in and they'll say, talk about this, do this, you get in an argument with this person, let's bitch this scene up, people. I mean, they'll say that, right? And then it's all shot, and you're supposed to sit there at home thinking you're watching reality. So I know that if this is going on with dating shows and with, summer break shows and what have you, do I think that there's absolutely no faking anywhere that goes on with these ghost investigation shows? Well, no, of course not. So there's a very strong likelihood that that's going on. Secondly, secondly, I'm on to my third now. Third possibility is that we are simply witnessing a natural phenomenon that doesn't have an immediately good explanation or that we don't know the explanation for, and it's simply being interpreted through the filters of the people doing the show in such a way as to make it seem supernatural. This is a thing called confirmation bias. If you go to a haunted house with a bunch of video cameras and equipment and you're damn determined to find a ghost, guess what? You're going to be finding ghosts all night. They're going to be dancing through the halls. You're going to hear a shutter bang and go, there's a ghost. You're going to hear a pipe creak and go, there's a ghost. You're going to hear a mouse in the walls and go, there's a mouse ghost. You know, people who produce these shows are people who want there to be ghosts. So there's all kinds of bias that you have to rule out, all kinds of options that you have to examine before you can cut through that and say, nope, real ghost this time. So yes, there are many, many things you can consider. And you can't just watch a tape, say, that's a strange phenomenon, and go right to thinking that the supernatural is real if you're going to be rational about it.
There's a difference between demonstrating the phenomenon and demonstrating a cause. And the cause is difficult and maybe impossible when you're talking about the supernatural. Not knowing, not having an explanation means that your answer is I don't know. Yeah. That's the answer.
Yeah.
And by the way, to kind of angle off of Martin's thing with regard to TV, you know those shows, it's like, will they find the Loch Ness Monster this week? No, because it was filmed 6 months ago, and if there was anything real to it, it would have been news everywhere. We wouldn't have had to wait for the advertisement for this show.
Yeah.
And there wouldn't be 93 ghost hunter medium shows, none of which have seemed to apply for the $1 million prize. Or there's, TV is not the source for good information about all sorts of things. If it is your only source and your primary source, chances are you are not justified in believing it. Especially if it's on like true TV.
Yeah. Or the History Channel.
Yes. The History Channel is probably the biggest abomination in the history of television because it portrays it, along with some of the other sciencey channels have gone kind of off the deep end.
Yeah.
At least some of the ghost hunter crap's on Sci-Fi where they're hoping. Yeah. It reminds me of the old 900 call a psychic things, and at the bottom it's, for amusement purposes only.
That's what it is. It's
people
television.
are going to believe what they're going to believe.
It's TV. It's an entertainment industry. Yeah. Now, but I'll wrap up by saying, would I like to someday meet a ghost or some kind of would it be cool? Well, sure it would, but I'm not going to be haunting these ghost hunter shows, hoping